In the heart of a bustling city where weekend parties blur into morning regrets, one night of celebration turned into a haunting mystery. A young woman vanishes after a wild night with friends, only for her body to be discovered in a trash disposal unit hours later. What happened between the last clink of champagne glasses and the chilling discovery? Who knew more than they said? In this twisted tale of deception, secrets, and betrayal, crime documentary peels back the layers of a night gone horribly wrong. This isn't just a murder, this is a carefully masked truth begging to be unearthed. Asterisk. It all started with music pulsing through the walls and lights, flickering like memories trying to stay alive in the corners of your mind, the kind of night that feels too loud, too bright, too full of laughter that masks the silence nobody wants to admit is waiting beneath the surface. The rooftop bar set high above the city skyline, watching over the people below like a silent god, and that night it watched Lena Morgan, 24 years, old, full of dreams, fire, and a hunger for something she never fully named, but always chased. She was the type of girl who entered a room and bent it to her gravity. She wore a red dress like a warning, shot a signal flare in the dark, and everyone noticed her that night. Her friends circled around her like planets around a sun, laughing, clinking glasses snapping. Pictures to post later with captions that would all feel haunting in retrospect. The music grew louder as midnight approached, and Lena danced like she was shedding skin, letting go of whatever back during the daylight and embracing something wild and dangerous inside her that was just waiting for permission to live her. Friends, 6 of them old college buddies who hadn't seen each other in months, gathered from different corners of the city and beyond to celebrate. No one really said what they were celebrating. Maybe it was the illusion that everything was still okay. Maybe it was the idea that youth would last forever. Maybe it was just an excuse to escape responsibilities for one night and pretend they were still those same kids from freshman year who thought life would be easy. Lena laughed hardest with Anna, her best friend since high school. Anna, who had always been the quieter one, the observer, the one who noticed things and held them in silence. But that night, Anna laughed too, the kind of laugh that hides worry deep inside her eyes. The night moved quickly like a dream, skipping scenes and blending faces. The drinks flowed like rivers, and decisions were made that no one would remember clearly in the morning. Or at least they would pretend not to remember. At around 2:30, the group stumbled out of the bar, laughing and leaning on each other, like children learning how to walk. They made their way to a penthouse suite rented by Trevor, the unofficial leader of the group. Trevor was the one with money, charm, and just enough darkness behind his smile to make people nervous. He always had a way of getting what he wanted and never letting anyone see the cost of it. The suite was sleek, all glass walls and cold furniture, and the city lights poured in like ghosts watching from outside. They played music too loud, spilled drinks on expensive rugs, and took turns telling old stories that didn't feel so funny anymore when told in the cold silence of that space. Lena seemed different in the penthouse, more distant, like something had shifted inside her. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She disappeared for a while into one of the guest rooms, and when she returned, her lipstick was smudged and her dress slightly twisted. Her friends didn't ask why. They didn't want to know, or maybe they already knew and chose silence instead. People like that always choose silence when the truth is too ugly to touch. By 3 in the morning, Lena's phone was on the counter, her purse beside it untouched, as if she had just gone to the bathroom or stepped out for fresh air. But she never came back. No one really noticed at first, or maybe they pretended not to notice, hoping someone else would ask the question, "Where's Lena?" By 6:30 in the morning, the sun had started its slow rise, casting golden light over a city still sleeping, unaware of what had already happened. A janitor named Mr. Ramirez, who had worked the building for over 20 years, pushed his cleaning cart toward the back alley where the trash disposal units were located. The smell was worse than usual, thick with something metallic and foul, and when he opened the large metal bin, he stumbled back in horror. The sight burned itself into his memory, a young woman's body, bent and broken, stuffed inside torn plastic bags. Her red dress soaked in something dark and sticky, her face partially obscured by her own hair, and her legs twisted unnaturally, as if trying to run away even in death. Mr. Ramirez screamed, then dropped to his knees and called the police, his voice shaking like leaves in a storm. The first responders arrived quickly, blocking off the area with yellow tape and taking photos that would later be plastered across headlines and news reports. The woman had no ID, no shoes, no phone, nothing that could tell them who she was. But when Anna arrived at the police station an hour later and saw the photo, she collapsed to the ground, her cries echoing down the sterile hallway. It was Lena. There was no doubt in her mind, despite the bruises, despite the blood, despite the lifelessness in her best friend's once bright eyes. It was her, and something inside Anna broke in that moment, something that would never be whole again. The autopsy later confirmed what the scene suggested. Lena had died between 3 and 4 in the morning from blunt force trauma to the back of the head. The force was strong enough to kill instantly, the pathologist said, in a voice that sounded too calm for what he was describing. There were signs of a struggle, bruises on her arms, defensive wounds on her hands, and dirt under her fingernails, as if she had fought until her last breath. The police searched the penthouse and found nothing, no blood, no signs of violence, no broken objects. Everything was clean, too clean. Detective Ramirez, not to be confused with the janitor, noted that it looked staged, scrubbed, as if someone had gone out of their way to erase every trace of her ever being there. But why and who would go to such lengths, and how had no one noticed? The friends were brought in one by one for questioning. Anna sat with her hands shaking, telling the officers about the night, how Lena had seemed off, how Trevor and Lena had argued quietly in the kitchen, how she had overheard something about a secret, a threat, a betrayal, but she hadn't asked questions, hadn't pressed, because it felt like crossing a line, and now she hated herself for it. The others gave inconsistent stories. One said Lena left on her own, another claimed she passed out in the guest room. One even suggested maybe she met someone and snuck out for a hookup. The lies wrapped around each other like vines choking the truth. None of them could explain how her body ended up in a trash bin, with no cameras showing her exit, no doors open, no windows broken. It was as if she vanished into thin air, only to reappear discarded like garbage. The surveillance footage from the hallway provided one clue: Lena, barefoot, dazed, walking slowly at 3:07 a.m. down the corridor, her head turning as if she heard something behind her, her lips moving as if she whispered help, then a blur, a shadow following her, too large to be hers, too slow to be a trick of the light, but too distorted to identify, and then she was gone, off camera, off the edge of the earth. Her final moments caught in pixels that answered nothing but raised 100 more questions. Detective Ramirez watched the clip on repeat, trying to catch anything, a reflection, a detail, a mistake. But whoever followed her knew exactly where the cameras did not reach. The public story was released by noon. A young woman found dead after a night of partying, body discovered in trash. No suspect, no motive. But behind closed doors, the investigation had already zeroed in on Trevor, the charming host who claimed he was asleep from 3 to 6 a.m., uninterrupted, undisturbed, and unbothered. Forensic teams began their sweep. Again, this time peeling back carpets and testing drains, checking walls for micro traces of blood, and when they found none, they turned to digital evidence, phones, texts, emails, and what they found made the air in the room turn cold. Lena had texted Anna just 2 days before the party, saying something was wrong with Trevor. Something had changed. She didn't feel safe around him anymore, but she didn't say why, and now she never would. Trevor had also deleted dozens of messages from his phone. All from Lena, all during the past week. His excuse was that he wanted space to clear his mind. But the police weren't convinced. And neither was Anna, not anymore, not after seeing the look in his eyes when they asked him, when was the last time you saw her alive, and he hesitated just long enough to betray the truth. Still, the puzzle was incomplete. The murder weapon was missing, the motive unclear, the timeline too loose. The story slipping like water through clenched fists. Someone had killed Lena, that much was certain. But the why and how remained trapped beneath layers of fear, lies, and silence. A silence so heavy it could crush bones, and in that silence the truth waited, patient and cruel, ready to reveal itself only when it was too late. The hallway was silent, except for the hum of the flickering light above, and the soft shuffle of feet as the detective moved slowly, replaying the footage again and again. Her bare feet on cold marble, her hair slightly disheveled, her lips trembling, like she was trying to say something, but could not find the voice to scream at. Exactly 3:07 a.m. Lena Morgan appeared, walking alone through the hallway of Trevor's penthouse building, and though her steps were clumsy, they were determined. Behind her the shadow followed, just a blur, just a distortion on a screen, just enough to confirm what everyone feared: she was not alone, and whoever followed her never showed their face, never left a trace, never gave the camera even a glimpse of the monster. They were hiding beneath the surface, but Lena's eyes gave it away. She looked scared, not lost, not drunk, not confused, but scared, and no one knew why. Because just a few hours earlier she was laughing, dancing, glowing with life, and now she was gone. And her absence screamed louder than anything her voice ever could. Detective Ramirez stood over the evidence table in the precinct, trying to connect invisible threads between the timelines, the statements, the inconsistencies. Everything felt rehearsed, too polished, like each of the 6 friends had practiced their stories with mirrors and silence. Before walking into the interview room, they all said different things, yet all claimed the same innocence, as if the truth was a shared lie carefully passed between them like a poisoned chalice. No one wanted to drink from. Forensics had failed to find any blood in the penthouse. No fingerprints near the trash chute, no torn fabric, no weapons, not even Lena's fingernails revealed DNA, only the marks of her own struggle etched beneath them like desperate messages written in pain. Someone had wiped the scene clean, not just the physical, but the emotional too. It was almost like Lena had been erased. Anna was the only one who kept coming back to the station. She sat in the cold interview room with her hands clenched, shaking, repeating what she knew, what she remembered, what she wished she had said that night. Lena told me she was scared. She whispered it between laughs like it was a joke. But her eyes weren't laughing. She told me Trevor got aggressive last weekend, threw a glass at the wall, and said, "If you ever betray me, you'll regret it." But I didn't think he meant it. I didn't think he would ever hurt her, and now I hate myself for not stopping it, for not asking more, for not being there. Anna cried like someone who knew that her guilt would never fade, that she would carry it like a scar, invisible, but permanent, stitched into every future memory she would ever make. Trevor sat calmly across from Detective Ramirez, his face unreadable, his hand steady, his voice soft, as he repeated again and again, "I was asleep. I didn't hear anything. I didn't see her leave. I didn't do anything wrong." The detective watched him, carefully noting every twitch, every pause, every word that felt too smooth, too rehearsed, and then asked, "Why did you delete all your texts with Lena?" Trevor blinked only once and answered, "I didn't want drama. I was trying to move on from a toxic friendship. She was obsessed with me. She threatened to ruin my life. I was protecting myself." The words came too fast, like bullets fired blindly into the dark, and the silence after them was even louder. Trevor asked if he could leave, and the detective said, "Not yet, not until we know exactly where you were between 3 and 4 a.m. Because that's when she died, and your story is full of holes." Trevor stared back with empty eyes and said nothing. Later that evening, a cleaning crew working behind the building reported something strange to the officers: a small broken shard of mirror wedged near the fire escape, barely visible and smeared with something dark. Forensics confirmed it was dried blood, and testing matched it to Lena Morgan. Along the edge of the mirror, a single fingerprint was found, and it belonged to Trevor. He was arrested quietly, no struggle, no protest. Just a small smirk, like he had expected it all along. And when they placed the cuffs on his wrists, he looked up at the night sky and said, "I didn't mean to kill her." The room fell silent, and the weight of those words dropped like a stone into the center of the investigation. Suddenly everything changed. Suddenly the shadows had a name in the interrogation room, under yellow light and thick air. Trevor spoke slowly, his voice dry like ash. He said, "It wasn't supposed to happen that way. We were arguing. She Said she was going to tell everyone about what I did before, about how I hurt her, about how I lost control. I couldn't let that happen. She said she was going to the police. I told her not to. And she laughed in my face. I pushed her, just pushed her. She hit her head and everything stopped. I froze. I waited for her to move, for her to speak, for her to scream. But she didn't. She just lay there, and I couldn't breathe. I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I cleaned the blood. I wrapped her in plastic. I took her down the service stairs. I thought if I hid her, if no one found her, maybe it would go away. Maybe I could forget what I did. Maybe it would all just disappear. He stopped talking, then and stared at his hands like they were strangers, like they had betrayed him. The confession shocked everyone, even Anna, who had suspected Trevor was dangerous. Never imagined it went that far. Never imagined. Lena's last moments were filled with fear and betrayal from someone she once trusted. Someone she once loved, maybe not romantically, but as a friend, as a brother, as part of the life she had built. The courtroom was full on the day of the trial. Lena's parents sat in the front row, their faces carved from stone, their eyes red but dry behind them. Anna sat clutching the last photo they took together at the rooftop bar, her own guilt wrapped tight around her throat like a noose. Trevor sat expressionless as the evidence was presented, the texts, the video, the mirror shard, the fingerprint, the confession. He never looked at anyone, not even when the jury returned with a verdict guilty on all counts, not even when the judge sentenced him to life, not even when Lena's mother stood and screamed, "You stole her, you coward. You monster." He just stared forward like a man watching his own soul drift away. But even as justice was served, something darker remained, something unspoken among the group of friends who had all chosen silence that night. Not one of them had checked on Lena, not one had asked where she went, not one had called her, not one had told the truth until it was forced from. Then they had watched her walk into danger and turned away, and that silence, that cowardice became its own kind of violence. Anna never forgave herself for it. She moved away, changed her number, stopped talking to the others. The group never reunited. Not even once. Guilt scattered them like ashes in the wind. None of them could bear the weight of each other's eyes. Detective Ramirez filed the case away one rainy evening and stared at the photo of Lena Morgan taped to the inside of the folder. Red dress, wild smile, eyes that seemed to hold more truth than most people could handle. He closed the folder and whispered sorry, because even though the killer was caught and sentenced, and even though the world moved on, a young woman was still dead, and nothing could bring her back. Not evidence, not justice, not even revenge. Her story ended in a trash bin behind a building that would keep partying every weekend while her name faded from memory like the echo of a song no one wanted to hear anymore. Crime Documentary brought this story to the world, not to shock, not to entertain, but to remind you that every choice matters, that silence can kill, that behind every smile, in every photo, in every rooftop bar, someone might be hiding pain, fear, truth. Someone might be walking their final steps while everyone else is too busy laughing to notice. Let this not be just another headline, but a warning, a whisper in the dark, telling you to speak when it matters, to see what others ignore, to care when it's easier not to, because justice does not bring back the dead, but it might just save the living. This was the story of Lena Morgan. The red dress, the party, the silence, the fall, and the shadow that followed her. This was not just a crime, it was a tragedy painted in guilt and washed in regret. This was the end, and there is nothing more to say.